Hello, everybody, and welcome back to ChäoS Head. So I'm recording these two parts back to back. Basically, I've needed to record a bunch of parts back to back this week, so as to sort of make sure that the uploads are sort of back on their normal schedule. Let me go and get my timer started now, and let's go ahead and hop back in. Standing at the windowsill of the presidential office located on the very top floor of the Nozomi Group company's headquarters, Narose Genshi lit a cigarette. The Nozomi Group, a large enterprise with numerous subsidiaries which carried out its business with ministerial authority from the government. Its subsidiaries had started up businesses in a variety of fields, from the sale of clothing and groceries to trading in the capacity of a distributor of imports, and they had accomplished measurable achievements. Narose, who stood at the very top of the group and reigned over it, gazed down at the view he could see from his personal castle. His consciousness, however, was not turned toward the scenery, or his consciousness, rather, however, was not turned toward the scenery. While wearing a mocking smile on his mouth, he tapped the floor irritatingly with his toes, countless times.
まったく。老人たちの相手は面倒ですよ。そう思いませんか？彼らは臆病すぎる。だからこそここまでのし上がってきたとも言えるのでしょうが、利用するにもこうあれこれと横槍を入れられてはいい加減うんざりしてきますよ。現実は悲しいかな。300人委員会の影響力というものを侮ることはできません。ただいずれ近いうちにそのシステムも崩壊する。楽しみですか？私もですよ。ここまで随分時間がかかってしまいました。プロジェクトノア、立ち上げからすでに5年余り。
Narose walked up to his desk. The top of his solid-looking desk, carved from natural oak, had little of the decorative about it, and was burdened only with office-like items. Except there was one thing that gave off a different color from the others, and it had tumbled carelessly toward the edge. Narose picked up the green, bizarrely designed mascot character. He gave it a bored glance and tossed it in the wastebasket. If it's something green, I want to go out on a limb and say it's supposed to be the Garo Froggy thing. But I don't know for certain, obviously. His narrowed eyes swung toward the room's dim interior. The moonlight from the window didn't reach the depths of the room. A faint human presence could be found there.
まさか君がギガロマニアックスだとは思いもよりませんでした。どうやら神すらも私の味方をしてくれているようだ。君のサンプルを取らせてもらいますよ。何？怯える必要はありません。私は元医師でしてね。インフォームドコンセントはきちんとしなければ気が済まないたちなのです。そもそもノア2のハードウェアはすでに完成しています。そのために君たちギガロマニアックスのサンプルが多く必要なのです。正確に言うならば NA シナプスに関するコードサンプル、脳の働きに指令を出す役割を果たしている部位の行動サンプルですよ。コードサンプルには個人差があります。持っている能力が高いギガロマニアックスは NA シナプスもより活性化し、脳のより広い範囲にわたって効果を及ぼします。
Sure.
人間の脳は全体の10分の1しか使われていません。しかしギガロマニアックスは違う。残りの10分の9の部位も使っていることが分かっています。ギガロマニアックスの頭の中というのは実に興味深い。そのサンプルがノア2にとっていわば CPU の役割を果たすわけです。サンプルが多ければ多いほど ノア2の能力は本物のギガロマニアックスに近づき、やがて超えるでしょう。納得してもらえましたか？結構。
Okay. Said nothing at all. Norose nodded in satisfaction and, blowing out smoke, returned his gaze to the scenery beyond the window. Viewed up close, Shibuya's nightscape was vulgarity itself and brought Norose nothing but an unpleasant feelings. Whatever. However, he usually thought to himself that he'd give passing marks to the view from somewhat separated places like this building. But then, this nightscape would soon become something one could never see again as a result of the final experiment performed in his Project Noah.
世界が生まれ変わる日も近い。
Okay, so I'm going to assume that that little shot there is showing us, yes, in fact, he did throw a Garo Froggy into the trash bin. And I'm curious as to who he was supposed to be talking to. There's only a handful of characters we know that have some sort of interest in Garo Froggy. Our sister and... what's her name? The blonde. I say the blonde. I'm pretty sure we have like 3 blondes in total, including our sister. The first character we met, what was her name? Yui, or I swear it started with a Y, but the name is escaping me right now for some reason. But whatever the case may be, there's only a couple of characters, like I said, that seem to have some sort of interest there. I think Senna has shown a little bit a couple times, but generally I don't think it's been touched on much with her, so I'm not 100% certain on that. Lunch break. I always skipped lunch because I didn't want to eat by myself in the classroom. I had no one to eat together with. Lately, Rimi had been inviting me to eat with her, but as you might well imagine, I became embarrassed and ended up refusing. Which was why, when we reached lunch break, I left the classroom and retreated to a place where I could find peace. At times it was the library, and at times it was the courtyard. But after the previously mentioned disturbance, everyone in the school had come to recognize my face, and I couldn't calm down no matter where I went. Gazes stabbed into me without mercy, sneers and insults thrown my way. Today, too, I walked around school, but it had the opposite effect of exposing me to even more disparagement, and then I thought I had no other option but to flee to the bathroom. I spotted Nanami from behind the passage. From behind in the passage, leading to the freshman building. She appeared to be walking to her classroom alone. Come to think of it, I hadn't spoken to Nanami once since that incident. I'd avoided bumping heads with her all week long, because I hadn't known what kind of expression to make when I saw her. I was the worst kind of brother, one who had prioritized my own life over hers. It was no more than a miracle that Nanami had been safely released. I hadn't done a thing. Maybe Shogun had told Nanami it was my fault he'd abducted her. If so, she'd definitely be furious at me. She'd disdain me, and maybe she wouldn't listen to me. That was why I didn't have the courage to go see her. But now that I'd spied her like this, of all times, I started to get worried. He hadn't done anything unthinkable to her, had he? He hadn't hurt her in some way, had he? She wasn't psychologically wounded, was she? For a second, memories of that hand revived at the back of my mind. But I shook my head to rid myself of them. That severed hand, and the bracelet it wore, and the cell phone it held. All of them had been delusions. Realistic delusions. Because the hand was no longer in my fridge, it seemed more natural to think that rather than having vanished, it hadn't been there from the start. Nanami being alive and well like this served as proof of that. At some point, I started running. I chased after Nanami, her form growing larger as I approached. Nanami still hadn't noticed me. While she walked along, she used the fingertips of her right hand to toy with the ends of her hair, twirling it. As I dashed up, I started to cry out to her. My sister's right sleeve slipped down a little as she twisted her hair. Sensing something wrong, I gulped down my voice. I halted. I'd seen it. It was a very minute sense of wrongness, one that truly didn't matter at all, but... white. Wound around. Inconspicuous. A bandage. On her right hand. Her wrist. Oh, and we are into chapter 8 now. I feel like 7 was kinda short. I'm gonna be honest. I really do. I think that was only what, like 3 or 4 parts, basically? When Momose called him out, Ban showed his face at the Frisia Investigations Company half an hour after their promised meeting time. Momose's yell was flying toward him as soon as he entered the office. Hunching his neck, Ban put on an amiable smile and walked up to the desk of Frisia's company president. He hadn't brought her any refreshments today, and he was starting to regret it, thinking he made a mistake.
あら、つばちゃんは？
今日は別行動。
若い子をこき使ってバンちゃんは楽してるわけね。
いやいや、俺もちゃんとやってるよ。昨日だって徹夜でいろいろ調べてたんだぜ。おかげで最近の女子高生の生態についてはかなり詳しくなった。
I'm not sure how people are supposed to take that, Ban.
あんたね、呆れて物も言えないわ。
で、こうして俺を呼びつけたってことは、あの子と連絡取れたってこと？
今来てるわ。
さすがももちゃん。ちなみに可愛い子かい？
I'm curious to know who her is. Seeing Ban grin and leer, Momose whacked him on the head. It was a rather searing thwack, one with some nice wrist action in it.
いつまでもバカなこと言ってんじゃないわよ、エロ親父。
冗談だって。
There was something Ban had requested of Momose as a personal favor. He wanted to have an individual conversation with a certain person who was connected to one of the new gen cases, so he'd asked her to create a setting in which the two of them could meet. He intended to discuss something based on purely personal circumstances, nothing presently related to the new gen investigation. Due to his position, Ban couldn't get a jump on the other detectives at headquarters and go to meet her on his own as part of work. Nudging Ban onward, Momose headed for a corner of the office. A narrow space surrounded by file-packed shelves could be found there. It was a space they used as a waiting room, and 2 couches with room for 2 people apiece had been crammed in there. When Ban followed Momose in, a lone girl was sitting there. She wore the Suame Academy uniform. Head lowered and shoulders slumped, she appeared horribly worn out.
ごめんね。お待たせしちゃって。
So for some reason I was thinking it was the nurse. I don't know why. But I'm pretty sure Ban already met the nurse, so that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. So, I guess it makes more sense that it is apparently a student at our school. Oh, it's you. Yes, you're the one I was talking about. I'm pretty sure you also have an interest in Garo Froggy. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's you and our sister. And then I'm sort of 50-50 on Senna on that. The girl raised her head in startlement when Momose addressed her. Her glasses had slipped down a little, and she adjusted them with her finger.
あ、いえ、平気です。
Upon seeing Ban, she nodded to him with a somewhat intimidated expression. Ban felt a bit wounded. In his own way, he'd been aiming for an attitude and appearance that wouldn't scare anyone. But he was forced to acknowledge that the fierce, high-pressure atmosphere unique to detectives had come creeping out regardless. He smiled wryly at himself on the inside, knowing he still had a long ways to go, and sat down to face Yua. There we go, that was your name. I'm like, I know it starts with a Y, I just couldn't recall what the rest of it was.
楠木優愛さんだね。
はい。
亡くなったミヤさんの双子の姉。それで間違いないかな。
Okay, and I'm getting the feeling we're going to find out Mia was one of the people who was killed in the group diving, if I'm going to make a guess. Pulling her chin back a tad, Yua answered with a nod. The first new gen case, the group diving. A girl named Kusunoki Mia had been among the 5 high school students to jump off and die. Yes, okay, I thought so. I'm like, it just seems like the obvious setup. She has a sister. Apparently she has some sort of connection to the new gen cases. And they specifically mention the late Mia, so clearly indicating the sister is dead. And I don't think any of the other cases have actually had female victims. I'm pretty sure they've all been... All the other cases, I'm pretty sure, have all been male. You know, we had the pregnant man, we had the person who got their blood sucked out, apparently, and turned green. Not sure how that works, but okay. We had the doctor who had his brain removed or something or whatever, and was apparently just sort of somehow still walking around as if nothing had happened until at some point he just croaked, basically. And then we have the group diving. I'm pretty sure that's... Oh, and we have the staking as well, but we know that one's definitely a guy. So, I'm pretty sure the group diving is the only one that could have ever in any way involved a female victim. So, it seemed obvious that it was going to end up being a case that she's related to somebody from the group diving.
まあ、そんな緊張しなさんな。君を取り調べようなんて思っちゃねえんだ。雑談程度に思ってよ。本題に入る前に、ちょっと聞いていいかい？ゆあちゃんは妹さんが亡くなったことについてどう思う？
ちょっとバンちゃん。
あ、悪いね。職業病ってやつか。気を使うような言い方できなくってな。ただ、気になってたんだ。捜査本部でも話題になってたんだが、楠木美也さんの遺族は奇妙だって。
How Mia's survivors were peculiar. Okay, now that raises a bunch of questions for me. Her survivors. I'm assuming in this case they're referring to her family, which is just a weird way to phrase it, honestly, in this scenario. But whatever. So what's wrong with the family that makes them peculiar?
ばあちゃん。
いえ、いいんです。
Momose had half risen at the insensitivity of Ban's statements, but Yua silenced her.
私もおかしいって思いますから。
はあ。
集団ライブで飛び降りた5人には自殺する理由なんてなかった。家族や友人はみんなそう主張している。
I'm pretty sure basically anytime there's a suicide, that often is the case. That family and friends will say that they didn't see any signs that there there was a reason, or that the person had any desire to do so. I could certainly be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's the norm. It is that often something happens and they decide to commit suicide. Enough stuff piles up and then they just sort of snap. And family and friends maybe don't realize that all these things have been piling up for who knows how long. And then there was just that one thing that was the straw that broke the camel's back.
だが、ミヤさんの家族だけは違った。
How so? Are we going to find out that she was somebody who maybe had a reason? Ben took out the fan stuck in his belt and began to fan himself.
何も主張しなかった。あっさり受け入れたって聞いてる。あまりに何も言わなさすぎて奇妙だったってな。
Okay, so that answers that. It seems as though family and friends of Mia just sort of accepted that she committed suicide when they were informed about her death. Because apparently they must have caught on to something that, maybe it was something she had a desire to do for one reason or another. But none of them apparently tried to discourage her or, get her help so she wouldn't do it.
なんでだい？
お父さんもお母さんも、ミヤちゃんが死んでからおかしくなっちゃったんです。
Oh, okay. Anguish seeps to Yua's voice.
最初はミヤちゃんの事件の知らせを受けた日は、それでも泣いていたんです。
Okay.
お父さんもお母さんもとても辛そうでした。
Okay.
でも次の日の朝、なぜか二人は楽しそうに笑っていたんです。ミヤちゃんが死ぬ前と全く同じに戻ってたんです。
Well, that's weird.
たった一日で。私、わけがわからなくて。二人はミヤちゃんのこと忘れようとしてるんじゃないかって思って。そうしたらお父さんが、お前に妹なんていないよって。
Okay. So something happened where in the minds of Yua's mom and dad, Mia just sort of disappeared. But the same didn't happen with Yua. She remembers having a sister. But the mom and dad apparently only remember having, I guess, the one child.
ミヤちゃんが残した洋服とか靴とかを見せても全然取り合ってくれないんです。それはお前のために予備で買ってあったものだって。そうやってお父さんたちはニュースからも警察の話からも目を背けて、記憶からミヤちゃんのことを消し去ろうとしてるんです。
つまり双子じゃなかったことに？
Wait, they were twins? Okay.
それで警察にもうちは一人っ子だって言って追い返してたわけか。
私とミヤちゃんは一卵性で、見た目は瓜二つなんですけど。
Okay, well, that's something I wasn't quite expecting. I was expecting, okay, sure, you can have a sister, an older sister, potentially. I wasn't exactly expecting the twins, but then again, I guess the new gen cases have all been taking place within the span of, what, like a couple of months or so? So, I guess, okay, it would have been a little hard for her to have had an older sister that wasn't just a twin that popped out first.
あの子は、妹は親から嫌われていました。
Wait, was Mia the younger one? Oh, okay, you were the older sister, I guess. doesn't really change anything. Well, actually, it kind of does, because theoretically then, if you could have the new gen cases take place over an extended period of time, it would make sense to be able to say you have a younger sister who's not a twin. But again, I guess the new gen cases have all been happening within some odd months. I guess not even a year has gone by.
あの子はいつも自分の気持ちを押し殺して、私のことを一番に考えてくれていたんです。
As Yua spoke, she recalled a memory from the time when Mia had been alive. And flashback. It was when they were still in elementary school. One day, their relatives brought them a single big teddy bear as a present. In opposition to the delighted Yua, Mia said she hated stuffed animals and wouldn't give it a second glance. The relatives and parents were repelled by Mia's non-childish behavior. Even then, Yua had secretly told her that the two of them should share it and treasure it, but Mia only answered, "I don't want stuffed animals, so you can have it." About a month later, when Yua started to become bored with the teddy bear, she woke abruptly late at night and witnessed a certain scene. Mia was hugging and talking to the teddy bear with a rapturous look on her face. You say giant teddy bear, that's not that big of a teddy bear, that's a normal sized teddy bear. It was the first time Yua had ever seen her look so happy. Then, for the first time, Yua realized her sister had been lying about not liking stuffed animals. She had borne it the whole time for her big sister's sake. Why? You could have just shared the damn thing. The next day, Yua found a drawing of a bear, which Mia herself seemed to have sketched under Mia's pillow. Mia had slept holding it as she waited for Yua to tire of the stuffed animal. This same sort of thing had gone on for these past 18 years. When they celebrated their birthday, Yua was always the one who blew out the candles on the cake. Mia angered their parents by saying, like I could never do something so idiotic. Yua moved on to the private Suimei Academy after middle school, but Mia deliberately took a delinquent attitude at school and lowered her marks. As a result, she went to a public school. Because of the issue of tuition, their parents could only afford to send one of them to a private school. No matter how Yua tried to yield to her younger sister, Mia stopped her and prioritized her instead. Moreover, she purposefully assumed the sort of demeanor meant to make others dislike her.
私は結局、ミヤちゃんの優しさに甘えて、今まで自分だけいい思いをしてきました。ミヤちゃんがいなくなって初めて、もっとあの子のために何かできることがあったはずだって、すごく後悔して。
I honestly want to say I was half expecting at some point for us to find out that Mia is a delusion that has basically been brought into reality. Hence why there was also a body that existed when she died. But that realistically, Mia was never supposed to exist. I'm half expecting to find that out at some point.
私が代わりに死んであげればよかった。しかも挙句に親に存在そのものを忘れられてしまうなんて、こんなのあんまりです。あんまりにも悲しいです。
Having squeezed out this many words, Yua hit her limit. She took off her glasses and broke down crying, pressing at the corners of her eyes. Momose sat next to her and gently stroked her back.
それでユアちゃんは一人で事件のことを調べていたらしいの。ミヤちゃんに一体何があったのか知るためにね。
そりゃあ大変だったろ。
そして一人の人物を突き止めた。
あ？
Arm around Yua's shoulders, Momose gave Ban a look.
西条匠くんよ。
なるほどね。
Ban leaned forward from the sofa as he rubbed his unshaven jaw.
いつだったか西条と追跡劇をしてたっていう女子高生の話を所轄のデカから聞いたんだが、
We weren't involved in any such crime.
もしかしてユアちゃんだったりする？
Yua gave an apologetic nod.
興味あるな。詳しく聞かせてもおうと思ったけどちょっとごめんよ。
Well, you didn't think that you wanted to hear the details. You want to hear the details. Just something has come out. Something has come up that you need to deal with potentially right now. You know, you're getting a call. Smiling ruefully, he gave Yua and Momose a light bow. The cell phone in his inner suit pocket was what had interrupted him. He quickly pulled it out and checked the LCD screen. Sua's name was displayed there.
もしもし、どうした？
先輩、7番目っす。
なんだと？
Sua's voice was tense. Even the sounds of the other investigators rushing around in a panic behind him came through the phone. It would seem that Sua was at headquarters.
ニュージェネ第7の事件が起きたんすよ。
Eyes wide, Ban finally bit his lip, a bitter look on his face, deducing the gravity of the situation from his bearing. Momose and Yua watched him worriedly.
ガイシャは3人、友人同士らしいっす。
3 victims, damn.
3人とも胴体から体が切断されてて、
Okay.
それぞれの上半身と下半身を別々に入れ替えて、テグス、釣りとっすね。それで縫い付けられてたっす。
Okay.
それと額にそれぞれ Q、D、N って読める傷が。
Okay, QDN, not quite sure yet.
何かのメッセージか？
Presumably.
さあ、そこまでは。それと気になることが。
You know, I feel like a serial killer isn't exactly going to be going and putting in the effort to, I guess, carve a wound into the bodies that spell out QDN. Maybe not necessarily in the order in which you're supposed to interpret them. Who knows?
司法解剖の結果は分かったんすけど、ガイシャの胴体の切断部はノコギリとか包丁とかそういう刃物で切断されたものじゃないって。
どういう意味だ？
なんか強い力で引きちぎられたそうっす。
Okay.
ちぎられ。
Upon reciting Sua's words in a groan, Ban scratched his head with the handle of his fan.
まるで怪獣だな。あるいは最近流行りの魔法使いとかな。
I don't think wizards typically are represented as tearing people apart.
先輩、それマジで言ってんすか？映画オタクの自分でもさすがにその意見には同意しかねるっす。
単なる例えだ、バカな。いいから、さっさと捜査に戻れ。
With that as his sole message, Ban ended the call. Okay, my timer was supposed to have gone off a little while ago, so we're going to go ahead and end this part here. And I actually forgot to make a save after recording the last part. Not a big deal since I record these back to back, but whoopsie daisy. So I will see you all next time. Quick reminder that if you want to support the channel, because you find yourself enjoying this series or any of the other series on the channel that you potentially watch, the best way to do that is going to be to support the channel either via my Patreon, in which case you guys get some goodies for it, such as early access to videos, or to support the channel via either a one-time or monthly donation via Streamlabs, in which case you don't get any goodies for it, but the channel takes home a larger cut of whatever it is that you give, because Patreon takes a 5% cut. I will see you all. And of course, also, if you want to stay up to date with what's going on with the channel, about any potential interruptions to my schedule, whether it be recording, uploads, streaming, whatever the case may be, you're going to want to join the Discord, because I typically don't post outside the Discord. Sometimes I will, but generally speaking, I don't. So if you want to stay up to date with what's going on with the channel, I do highly recommend that you join the Discord. You don't necessarily need to be active in it, but it is a good idea to go ahead and actually join it, just so you can know what's going on. So I will see you all next time. Till then, goodbye and farewell.